So my sense of direction is pretty horrific, and there was a time I was in a very remote part of Austria, Grunau, and wanted to go meet up with some friends at a lake. I grabbed a bike, and set off, map in hand. All was going well until I realized I was in a really remote part of the town, and pretty soon realized I was also on an incline. My poor sense of direction and my infantile relationship with maps inadvertently led me up a mountain. I was 2.5 hours into my voyage, there was no sign of any life around me, the noises got stranger, and there was definitely no lake in sight. I looked at my map wondering how it could deceive me and where our relationship took a wrong turn, pun intended. Then, I turn around and boom, I get a flat tire. It was getting darker, I was shitting bricks by the second, and any moment now, something was going to jump out and eat me alive, because of logic. I eventually stop caring that my bike will collapse on me and start riding it down a very rocky trail at a pretty fast pace, just hoping to get out of there as fast as possible. Safety hazard, absolutely, but again, logic. Several minutes later, I finally see a highway, so I get back on a known trail, and just a few kilometers up, I see the sign where I missed my turn for the lake. After my 2-hour detour, I had no desire to be near anything wet as I was already soaked from exhaustion, so tried to get reception to call and see if anyone could pick me up. Eventually, I was able to track down some elderly Austrian men who could see my dilemma and gave me their phone, and a large pint of Austrian beer to save the day. Story 2: I was 18, and it was my first time traveling alone. I went to Argentina for 3 months. My first week in, and I'm wandering around Buenos Aires. At the time I knew enough Spanish to get by, and a man approaches me and asks for directions in Spanish. I tell him that I'm not from here. He then asks me if I am a tourist. I say yes, and he seems delighted, quickly telling me that he is too. He offers up the idea to explore the city together. I, alone in the big city, agree. We start walking together, and he seems like a really nice guy. After about an hour, he says "Tengo hambre, I'm hungry." I hadn't eaten since breakfast, and it's about 1, so we go to a nice restaurant. He tells me I have to try the steaks and red wine. I'm not much of a wine fan, but he convinces me. We are there about an hour, and the bill comes. It's 140 pesos. He pulls out 100 pesos. I try to pay for my half, but he only lets me pay 40 pesos. He tells me I can get the beers later. We continue on our little adventure and eventually come to a bar with outdoor seating. The waitress brings out a liter of beer, and we relax. Soon enough, another liter comes out. We finish the second liter and leave this bar. Then I wake up 8 hours later, missing my debit card, iPod, cell phone, and travel guide. Story 3: On Lufthansa flying to Germany, I was relaxing listening to my music, and suddenly a woman stands up a few rows ahead and starts screaming and pointing. I sort of flinched and took my headphones off, trying to figure out what the hell is going on. Then a couple of other people stand up and move away from the middle row of seats, where I eventually figured out that a man was unconscious and his wife right next to him was completely frozen. Then the flight attendant comes and completely overreacts, slapping him and yelling, scaring the cabin. A couple more flight attendants arrive and carry the, still, unconscious man to the food prep area and call for a doctor over the plane intercom. Thankfully there was a doctor on board and he assessed the situation. An hour later the man walked out of the food prep area and sat back down in his seat. He was checked on periodically by the doctor. After we landed I saw the man that was unconscious and I asked him how he was doing. He replied everything is okay and walked away just fine. Amazing. Story 4: Recently a friend and I stayed in the Amazon jungle near Iquitos, Peru, on a camping trip. After 5 days out in the wild, I was ready for a nice warm shower and a good night's sleep in a decent bed. The hostel was a set of floating buildings right on the river. We decided to go for dinner out in the city. It started to rain incredibly hard. I have never seen rain come down harder than this. We waited it out for a couple hours and enjoyed a few beers. Once it stopped, we went back to find out that our hostel had dislodged from its anchor and floated out and pretty far down the river. The only remaining building was the reception office. I guess the hostel owner didn't see us leave for dinner. They thought that we were in our rooms and called the police to go pick us up. When they didn't find us in our room, they started to search the river with spotlights and every boat they could spare. Needless to say, the police and hostel owner were relieved to see us walk up completely dry and alive.